A little. Don't worry about it.
All right.
All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Arun, otherwise known as Arun. You take five on Reddit. I am a little under the weather at the moment, so I will let James continue to take it away.
All right, today is Sunday, the 21st of January, 2018. We're a little over halfway through the season here now, and today's main topic of discussion slash debate slash bitching will be our half-season review. So we're going to go through all the players that have played with the team this year. I think we'll have to establish some sort of like minimum games played
We could say 15
criteria.
games.
So the players like I don't know, Andre Sekera, should we, he's played 12 games. I think we can probably pass over him.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, let's get started here. Go right into it. I'm going to start with the goalies. So our fearless leader, Cam Talbot, he has played in 37 games so far this year. Goals against average 3.08, save percentage 902.
I can go first with Cam Talbot. I think for sure one of the big problems with their season so far is the fact that Talbot hasn't been great. At least not like a Talbot from last season. He has his starting job pretty much safe and secure, so that's never been an issue for him. But now, when the bad goals come in, it comes in multitudes. What the fuck is that sound?
I have no idea.
Never mind then. So Cam Talbot, he started 37 games this season. He's won 17, lost 16. But the big stains to his mark right now is the fact that his save percentage is just above 900 with 902, and his goals against average is above 3 with a 3.08. For a starting goaltender, those are really atrocious numbers. As consequently, I'm just going to give him a C plus or a C, somewhere in between there, because we know what's capable of him. It might be that he's just not rested well enough and he's having a bad season, or his defense isn't showing up. But simply talking about the numbers, worst goaltenders, or goaltenders on worse teams are putting up better numbers, i.e. Robin Lehner. It's not really acceptable from him. Adam?
Leonard thrived under being under siege, though. Whenever the Sens played poorly, he played well. Was basically it. But aside from that point, Talbot's been not good enough. It's plain the whole team hasn't played well. And we can't exactly say Talbot's the reason we've lost a lot of games, but he's also the reason we haven't won a couple. I'd say a fair assessment is probably a C plus. He hasn't been stellar. He could be better. He knows he could be better, and I think we're going to see a resurgence in the last half of the season here. He's played pretty well the last 3 to 5 games. No major gaffes, no goals where we're watching him a minute in, not like a shot should be stopped kind of thing. So it's a little thing. It's been the little things that have killed him this year. He's made the big saves, but it's letting in 2 goals in 2 minutes. One of them which was very stoppable, and then one which was a tip that was impossible to stop. But if you stop that first one, then you're only 1 goal down instead of 2. It's been that kind of thing where it's killing momentum early in games, or it's just sucking the life out of a comeback that needs to stop, and I think Cam knows that.
I know, dude. James.
Yeah, I'll give him a C plus. So I'll give him a C plus. I mean, I don't think that what we saw from Talbot last year is what Talbot is. I don't think he's that good, but I don't think he's as bad as he's been this year either. Yeah. So I think the truth lies somewhere in between. Save percentage, obviously, he needs to come up. 902 is pretty unacceptable. I think with any NHL starting goalie to have faith and confidence from your teammates, you're looking at at least a 915 save percentage. So that needs to come up considerably. I'll give him a C. He hasn't been atrocious, but I mean, he's been pretty disappointing.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that assessment there.
Backup for the majority of the season was Laurent Brossoit. So we'll go over him. We'll skip Montoya. He's only played 2 games. So
Brossoit played only 13 games.
13 games, yeah. So he was the backup, and eventually Oilers management decided that they didn't like what they saw and sent him down. So while he was here, what did you guys think?
I think we've nailed it in our last week's assessment, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, assessment of Laurent Brossoit. There's definitely something there, but we're getting at the stage of we might be looking past Brossoit for a future backup slash future starter,
Mm-hmm.
as Cam Talbot turns the age of 30, and now we have a backup at the age of 32 in Montoya. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. A .886 for save percentage and a 3.22 for goals against average. And the fact that he can only master up 3 wins in 10 games started is quite
Better.
bad. Quite bad is
It
putting
is
it
quite
lightly.
bad.
It's really,
Yeah.
really atrocious.
I've been harping on this since like
Yeah.
preseason and training camp, and I repeatedly said like it's time for Brossoit to show what he can actually do.
And
And
very obviously he hasn't. And
yeah,
that's
I got a lot of
that's
pushback on Reddit about that train of thought because people are saying over and over like, "Oh, he's still so young. He's still got so much time to develop." And no, he doesn't.
Oh,
Like he's 24. Like
yeah.
play or don't play. So
Like he has like 1 or 2 more years, and that's it. Like after that point, you're like a Frederick Anderson in the league, where you're blossoming in your 30s.
yeah, which is
Of total luck.
yeah,
Nothing
it's
to do with
unusual.
actual.
You know, you can't bank on that happening.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
All
with
right.
Brossoit, I mean, I'd give him relative to expectations and everything. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he is a backup goaltender, granted, but I still got to give him C minus.
C minus. I'll give him a D minus.
Ooh.
He's
I
been
mean,
really bad.
yeah. I was gonna say C minus. He's been a disappointment.
Yeah.
He hasn't been good enough.
All right.
I mean, it's kind of a nice thing we got Al Montoya in exchange for all this, which is he's been a steady backup, but it would have been nice if we could have filled that slot through development, since we could pay them less and save a few money where the money where it matters, but what are we
Not
gonna
the
do
way
about
the
it?
world works, unfortunately.
That's the way she goes.
Yeah.
Fucking way she goes, boys.
Continuing on, your call for
Defense.
next player.
Defense. We'll start with. We'll skip over Sakara, skip over Davidson. We'll
They're
do
both-
Greiba. He played 21 games.
I mean, like, we don't really need to talk much about Greiba. 2 assists
Mm-hmm.
in 21 games, 31 penalty minutes. He was a +4, and I don't even think that's because of him playing any good minutes. He essentially, after we picked up Davidson, played himself off to the roster entirely. He's now in the AHL. He's no longer on the team, and it seems unlikely that he'll get called back up. He went unclaimed when he was called up, so I think this is the end for Davidson.
For Greiba, you mean?
Yeah, Graba, yeah. Oh, and Pool Party, for I just want to address one thing. Your most important penalty killer during the penalty kill is your goaltender. So you could say that his save percentage is bad because of the really bad PK, but I'll say that his save percentage should be bad because he's been bad on the PK. And that's my assessment of Talbot there.
I mean, it's not just the PK, to be fair. Like, it's, the PK, you'll maybe face 5 shots a game versus the other 25 to 30 you're facing in regulation play.
Yeah.
Yes, the historically low penalty kill will hurt that, but your save percentage isn't going to be solely destroyed by a penalty kill.
Yeah.
It's certainly not helping. I mean, let's be real here. The penalty kill is shit,
really bad.
beyond all
yeah.
shit. It's literally the worst, one of the worst of all time.
Yeah.
But a goalie playing only poorly on PK versus poorly all the time is you're gonna have different stats. Like, it's not gonna show that way.
Exactly. Sorry. Continuing on with Greiba, Adam.
Yeah,
Keep it short.
he's probably hit the end of the road. It's he wasn't playing stellar this year. He's too slow. He's a little older. And I think that's fine. I think he's accepted that he's He's over the hill at this point. He played a good number of good years in Ottawa. He played passively as a seventh defenseman for his last 2 seasons. So, I think he knows he's old other in this team. He's going to get brought out to the farm and put to rest.
Jesus.
Or his NHL career. I won't, we'll say his career is being brought out to pasture.
Put to rest.
Put to rest.
It sounds like he's just
Christ,
being
dude.
put down like an old dog.
I mean, we did
Old
send him to
Yeller,
the farm,
I
to be
mean,
fair.
Jesus.
He
And
turns
it's Bakersfield.
30 in April. I mean, didn't he
It's
get a
Bakersfield.
2-year contract from us though?
He did get a 2-year contract, yeah.
I think this is his
So, I
last
mean-
year of his deal. I'm fairly certain.
Oh man, I think he's got one more after this.
I will search this as you guys move on.
Okay, we'll go ahead. I mean, with Greiba, like, makes sense. He's slow. I find that plays die on his stick. He'll cost the team penalties and goals.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that he's gone. Like, great guy, but no.
Yeah. Continuing on, who's our next player here? I think we're unanimously it'll be a D-, D, or an F with Greiba, I'm guessing, right?
All right.
Yeah.
So next on our list here, we'll go with Adam Larson.
So I guess I'll start with Adam Larson because I think one of the biggest things about Adam Larson in terms of a positive this season is the fact that he's probably been our most reliable defenseman defensively, outside of say Nurse in some situations. Like when we're stuck in our zone in any kind of capacity, I'm fairly confident when Larson's got his the puck on his stick, it's gonna be like we're gonna break out and we're gonna be fine. But the problem is that that offensive stats from Larson right now, which is standing at, I'm trying to pull it up. I'm just being really slow at it.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
sorry, before we go on, James, you were right. Greiba does have another year on his contract, but turns out he's only 29. He doesn't turn 30 until
Next year.
this season.
Yeah, turns 30 in April.
He does have one more year on his contract, only 900K, but
It's not hugely consequential. It's a contract we can bury in the minors.
Cap space.
Anyway, with Adam Larson, 3 goals, 3 assists for a total of 6 points in 39 games. That's looking at a year-end trend of about, I'm guesstimating here because don't really have a calculator up or anything like that, 11 points by the end of the season, which would easily be one of his worst offensive showings ever in his career. The only worst one in his career that I can pull up where he played a good chunk of the season, nope, that would be the worst in his career. So obviously one of the things is, he's a defenseman. He's never been that responsible for offense. Even last year when we were having a good season, he only put up 18 points. We did well. But the problem is, simply put, when you're the number 1, number 2 defenseman on the team, let's say number 2 realistically here, you still need to put up points. Like, there's just because you're a defenseman doesn't mean that you don't put up points. And we're not expecting like a magnitude number of points, but even 30 points coming from a defenseman is it can be backbreaking for a team because that's 30 points we're missing from Clefbaum. And I think that's the issue that everyone's running into with Larson, because we essentially gave up a Taylor Hall for this player that can't put up points for the life of him from the back end. And
Taylor Hall's got 48 points this year.
Yeah, Taylor Hall's got 48 points this year. He's leading the team, his own team, by a wide margin. I think by 18 points from the first and second. And when you look at that, like when you look at what we gave up, this is what people that were saying this is bad asset management was talking about. This is what we were talking about in the trade thing, where it shouldn't have been just Larson. It should have been Larson plus. Obviously, some people are going to say, that's in the past, we got to move on, but that's the reality. This is how we got ourselves into this situation, because a first rounder or a second rounder could have been a prospect that we could have perhaps moved for a forward player that could play wing and fill in a position, or could be, the Brock Besser that we could have drafted. Just throwing that out there. But
I was just I always hate the thing
You
where
know,
they're like, "Oh, move on from the past." It's like, well, every decision made in the
in the
last 2 years
past,
has impacted where we are now.
yeah,
So you can't ignore the move from 2 years ago to move for Adam Larson for Taylor Hall because, or the other way around, sorry, because that's still impacting us to this day. You can say we didn't get fair value and we have to move on from that aspect, but it's still a pressing issue.
no, no, no.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front there.
I
So
agree for sure.
I think we're all in agreement on that front, unless you want to guys say something about unique here. But in terms of an assessment, I'll give him a C. I think he's been really substandard this year. I think defensively he's our most responsible defenseman, but there needs to be more to his game than just defense here, because especially in the absence of Clefbaum.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
give him a C minus. I mean, we all knew that this was not going to be Duncan Keith. This is not going to be Brent Burns, but there needs to be more offense.
Even half of those players offensively would be nice.
Like when we got him, I was hoping for like 25 points as a minimum, you know, and I knew that we weren't getting a 50-point guy, but I thought 25 was reasonable. I don't know. Pretty disappointed with him. He is steady defensively, but um, this team still lets in a lot of goals. So
I think initially we had said the start of the season we had said 20 points would be a good amount for Larson, and he's on pace for half that.
yeah, that's just like scaling back your expectations and like settling too. Like no one's really happy with 20-point output from him. It's just you come to realize that that's what he is, and it
Yeah.
sucks.
And the
But
thing too with Larson is that over the past two seasons he hasn't even hit that 20-point mark.
mhm.
Well, that's why we were saying it. Like, I was thinking like, okay, well, that's a reasonable jump for the next season,
Yeah.
without saying, oh well, if he doesn't hit it, it's going to be good. It's like no, he needs to. That needs to be the benchmark. And I think
Yeah.
the problem is Larson knows that, but he's also got he's got no power play time, which isn't really great since our power play hasn't been stellar. But it's the kind of thing where he's always in a defensive role, but he's never really producing when he's given the chance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Should
Except
we
for
move
last
on
night, I guess.
to the next player then? Let's
sure.
say Nurse, so we can talk about something good.
There's not a lot of that. To be
Sorry,
fair.
sorry for being sounding like such a Debbie Downer. I'm so sick right now. Oh my gosh.
Nurse, I'll give him a. Let me see here.
B plus.
Nurse has been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Like he's taken a big, big, big step forward. I'll give him a B plus. The intelligence is still a work in progress, but the skating is fantastic. He's got a mean streak. The offensive production is up. So I'll give him a B plus.
Yeah, I'm right there up with you in terms of that assessment. I think he's been looking much better among our defensive corps. Easily looking like the best defenseman this season. Although I will say that I'd like to see a little bit more consistency from him. But that being said, when Nurse is on his way to essentially close to a 40-point season, like easily 35-point season this year, I'm very happy with the Nurse that we're having right now. He's definitely filling the void that Clefbaum is facing thanks to his injury. He's close to eclipsing Clefbaum and Larson for average time on ice. And assuming that continues in the trend in his favor, he should be one of our best defensemen this year, which makes obviously this offseason signings really difficult. Because then it becomes the question of how do we keep Nurse and keep all the players that we need to, and not break the bank completely.
Well, with Shirelli, that's not going to happen.
It's a
Yeah,
foregone
I'm
conclusion.
not super pleased
I
right
give
now.
him a
Anyway,
B plus. That's my rating.
no, I'd have to agree. I'd say B plus A minus for Nurse at least. He's been everything everything he's gotten this year he's earned. They're not gifting him minutes. They're not gifting him time. He's whatever Nurse has done, he's done for himself. which I love. Darnell has been fantastic. He's been I would say easily our best defenseman this year.
Um,
Um, and you know it's been a case of a player growing into their role, and you may be maybe the defenseman we need. Hopefully, he keeps improving. But yeah, he's been steady.
Andre, the reason that we're saying that is Nurse arguably has been better than Larson at stretches in the season, defensively. Has been better at keeping at times the puck out of the net than Larson has, and has 18 points this season, which already matches the point production that Larson had last year, the entire season. So yeah, you can be good defensively and you can produce offensively. And that myth of stay-at-home defenseman has essentially died over the past few seasons because you can be a good stay-at-home defenseman, but that doesn't get the puck in the other team's net.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And
I
you
agree
also
with Andre,
need
but also
you
with
need
Robert,
both of
who's
those things to happen in order to win games.
as you said, I agree with Robert there. He's bringing up the fact that stay-home defenseman is a dying breed, and you know
Yeah,
I don't disagree. I think nowadays you can have defensemen that are more defensively sound than others.
yeah,
Like if you compare Schultz to Larson, obviously one is more defensively sound, but
yeah,
every defenseman in the NHL nowadays is expected to produce to a certain point.
yeah.
Now you're not expecting them to produce 30 points a season, but when you're paying for a first pairing defenseman, your first pairing defenseman can't not produce points, especially when they're on the ice with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue here is you're having defensemen who are making breakup passes to forwards within us. So it's a double-edged sword, but you can't
I'm
have a
fairly
first pairing
sure the
defenseman
only
not
team in the
producing.
league with worse
Sorry?
scoring from the defensive defenseman is Buffalo. Like we're the
Yeah,
second
well,
worst in the league from scoring
that's
from defensemen. And if you
yeah.
look at it in terms of an overall trend, teams with that are top 10 in scoring from defensemen make the playoffs.
It's I mean that's
That's how
been
it is.
that's been a thing for years. You know, the only team right now, I think the Islanders have the highest goals for and the highest goals against right now, and
Yeah.
they're not in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Are we still talking about Larson or Nurse, or who
Yeah,
are
there
we
was a
on?
commenter that was saying that he's a defensive defenseman. It's different positions, different responsibilities, but we're trying to point out here that that doesn't really apply when it's your first pairing defenseman, and the most he's put up with the Oilers is 18 points in a season.
Okay, but who are we talking about? Like
Now
Nurse
we
or
are
what?
talking about
Moving on from Nurse.
Nurse.
So who?
We're
Russell.
still waiting for Adam's score for Nurse. That's it.
Oh, Nurse. B plus.
B plus. All right. I give B plus too. Let's move on to Benning.
Sure, let's do betting. Yeah.
I forgot he was on our
He's
team. Oh, that's not good.
Benning's. I guess that's a good spot to start from. Benning has really been forgettable. Benning, like one of the things that I noticed, especially in the last game after the break, you start catching back up and you start noticing new things in certain ways. Is that whenever there's a defensive collapse, it's from a breakout pass that Benning flubs. And that's one of the biggest problems that I'm having with Benning is the fact that offensively he really contributes in that he's put up 10 points in 43 games. But every other aspect of his game is just suffering. He's bad at moving the puck up through the neutral ice. He's bad at the first pass. I'm always a little sweaty when he has the puck on the blue line and he's challenged. Realistically speaking, I think with Benning, we're ways away from seeing the potential defenseman that he could be. And I don't think we should give up on him. He's only 23 years old. But one thing's for sure, Benning at best might turn out to be a power play specialist. But even there, he's struggling this season. In terms of a grade, I would give him a D+.
Yeah, I think maybe D plus is maybe a little sharp, but or a little harsh, but he's not much better than that. Yeah, he's like the big thing for me is that he's been forgettable. You know, there are a couple other players that are like that as well that we'll get to, but he doesn't necessarily mess up a lot, but I rarely see him make eye-catching plays that are good. He's just
Yeah.
kind of there.
I guess to
And
add to that, because I feel like I may have been a little harsher. When he does catch your eye, it turns out more in the negative than in the positive.
yeah, I'll give him a C minus. He hasn't been good.
Yeah, I think I'm stuck in that loop where I'm like, it's for some defensemen on some nights when you don't notice them, it's a good thing because it means they're doing their job. With Benning, he's supposed to be a more offensive defenseman. We don't really notice him, so it's not really a great thing. But he's also not necessarily the worst defensive defenseman we've ever seen. But for me, Benning on most nights, I forget he's there until I see the 83 and he has the puck. I'm like, I completely forget that Benning's there, which is not great for young defensemen. But to be fair, it could be worse. Like Erwin said, he needs to improve his first pass. He needs to improve his decision making at times. That's a young defenseman thing, though. I mean, we looked at Darnell last year versus this year. His decision making has improved significantly, and that's been arguably his biggest turnaround in his game. And I think Benning will do the same. But right now, with Benning playing the way he is, I can't see anything above like a C at best, and that's maybe pushing a little bit. Like C minus, C is closer.
Yeah, C minus makes sense.
It's not that he's been horrific, but he can be better, and he knows he can be better.
Yeah,
I
he
think
was
that's
better last year.
There's a lot of that with the team right now. Is a lot of them are playing to a point where they're not playing well enough, but they know they can be better, but they're not being catastrophically terrible all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're definitely not out of like catastrophically terrible for a lot of players, but it could be better. Is the way I see it, isn't it? And I can't go up to minus.
And then,
So next up then would be the other half of our Swedish dynamic duo, Oscar Klefbom.
okay,
11 points. He's minus 11.
11 points in 43 games, minus 11. He's en route to one of his per game, one of his worst offensive totals in his career. Definitely a downgrade from his 35-point season last year. I have to double check that number. 38-point season last year, where he really solidified himself as the number one defenseman on our team and number one defenseman in that category in many different teams, especially in his playoff performances, where he was easily the best defenseman in the first series and best defenseman perhaps on both teams in the next series, outside of, say, Lindholm having to defend McDavid every now and then. And then we get to our issue this season. So what the story goes right now, and what what people are saying is the reason that he's downgraded so much is his shoulder got injured in the Anaheim playoff series. If you remember, in that series, we lost Klefbom for one game, and then he came back to play, I think, games 6 and 7. That was a question mark in terms of what happened. Fortunately, he still looked decent, respectable. He was that pairing of Klefbom Larson was our most dependable in the defensive zone. And then it carried over to this season. And if you remember, over the December, I think 23rd-ish time, he missed 2 games, and that was to get a cortisone shot in his shoulder, which means that the shoulder problem that he had last year from the playoffs is still there. That's why he's not shooting. That's because he's not able to shoot. He's not able to derive power from his shot. And from a number one defenseman on your team, when you're missing that aspect where you have a defenseman that quite literally can't unleash his biggest weapon, it's a negative. And I'll give him a B minus. There we go. I rambled, guys. What's up?
That texting is new. I didn't know you could do that. That's gonna be useful.
Okay, Klefbom, relative to expectations and everything, I mean, 38 points last year. He did play all 82 games for the first time ever. Maybe it was kind of unrealistic to expect that again, but another 82 games, I thought that 40 points would have been a good benchmark for him to try and get to. He's injured. I don't know what else is really going on, but his offense is pretty much it's almost half of what it was last year,
Yeah.
and he was expected to be the number one. If Nurse hadn't taken such a big step forward, I think that fans would be on him a lot more than they are. I think he's still actually getting pretty much a pass, honestly, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I'll give him a C, and I feel like that's pretty much what he is. Maybe even borderline C minus, but I'll give him a C.
Ralston, yeah, I agree with you that Clefbaum needs to chill out on the pitching just a touch. But if you remember last season, a lot of his success came from the fact that he was pinching very intelligently. This season, it seems as though he's pinching very at inopportune times. Like his timing is off with his defensive partner, and that's where it's starting to show. Sorry, Adam.
No, I mean, if you look at Clefbaum this season versus last, there's a significant difference in his play. He's just been, like you said, he's making either poor decisions or he's been not producing offensively, and a lot of that might be due to the injury. But then, why wouldn't you let him? Why wouldn't you sit him for a bit longer during the start of the season? I guess because Sekera's already out, so Clefbaum's injured. But if you know he's been injured for 8 months, how do you be Shirelli and go through the summer without fixing that problem? Again, this is where I'm coming back to the issues. If we're waiting for Sekera to come back to put Clefbaum on IR so we can heal up, that's not the right way to approach a defensive core. If your two of your best defensemen are injured, fucking find something to fix the gap. It doesn't make sense to have Sekera sitting because he's recovering from ACL surgery while you're having Clefbaum play injured if he's going to play half as well as he can.
Cap space.
Which we still have. I don't understand this fucking team.
Cap space.
It's just blowing my mind.
Cap space. Cap space. Yeah, making a trade a year before you had to, and then not addressing anything that actually had to be addressed. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it blows my mind that we didn't see this coming more than we did. Like, there were warning signs for sure, and I think that a lot of people were hesitant and the optimism skid dial wasn't at 11, but I didn't think that it would be like this.
Yeah.
Not like this.
Not like this.
Anyway, so, Clefbaum underperforming, blah, blah, blah. I'd say C minus. We needed him to step forward this year. He's taken a massive step back. And like you said, I think Darnell's done a good job of protecting Clefbaum from a lot of blame right now.
Yeah.
And whether or not that improves or whether that changes as the season goes on. His play has improved a little bit since he's returned from IR, but not to the level where he was last year.
All right. Last one on our defenseman here, I think, will be Chris Russell.
Oh, Chris Russell.
It's your boy.
It's your boy Chris Russell here.
It's your boy Chris Russell.
We're losing our minds, friends. Chris Russell with that fatty 16 points in 47 games. Second amongst our defensemen. Big number there being the fact that he's only a -1 this season. I'm just kidding. Definitely offensively, he's having a much better showing than he did last year. However, my problem with Chris Russell still comes from the fact that he's... I don't know, whenever like the puck's on his stick or he's in our zone, like I always feel as though the other offensive team gets sustained pressure. Fortunately with Russell, and this is why he can stick in the league, is that usually doesn't end up in the back of the net as a consequence for that. But that still exhausts our players, the other players that are playing with him. Overall, though, that I think he's been like having one of his better seasons in his career. And fortunately showing, a good defenseman still at the age of 30. Still not a fan of the contract, and I think everyone will say that. But it'll be interesting in terms of how that plays out. I'd give him a B, and I'm a little hesitant to give him that B because I still think his first pass needs a lot of work. But he's shown up offensively, which I've been berating our defenseman on, and he's been better defensively this season at times. I think there's still like big flubs that he's made this year defensively.
I'll give him a B minus kind of in the same vein as you. You know, when he's on the ice, the Oilers generally don't have a lot of puck possession or a lot of puck pressure. Still, the offensive production has been more than I expected, and that's got to count for something because it's not coming from other people that it's expected of. You know, he's on pace for roughly 30 points, and that's good. That's very good. Second pairing defensive production. You know?
One statement to be made, however, is he is getting fairly good offensive zone starts. His zone starts is actually 53% offensive, 47 defensive, which puts him above Larson and Davidson for favorable zone starts. And also with time on ice, he's the fourth among our defensemen. And the important stat there and fourth among our defensemen is between Nurse and Russell. It's about 3 minutes of ice time that's different. So he's very explicitly playing a 4-5 defenseman's ice time.
Those zone starts aren't as lopsided as I thought they would be. Honestly, no. I thought he would have more in the more in the offensive zone. So
57.
That number actually impresses me.
Yeah. He was debuted on the power play for a bit too, I'm fairly sure, but that didn't work either.
What has worked Adam, on power play really?
What's your rating for Russell, Adam?
Yeah, your rating.
God. Look, I've been very against Russell last season. You guys know that. I'd honestly say a B. He's been a pleasant surprise. I can't even admit I don't want to. I hate being wrong, but Russell's proved me wrong, and rightfully so. I'm glad he's having a good season. He's been our most consistent defenseman. I wouldn't say our best throughout the year, but he's been our most consistent from start to now. And I think he's showing that while his contract is a joke, he can still be a useful player. And I think we'd be all a lot more happy if it was $1 million less per season and 1 year less. I think that's what everyone can agree on at this point. But his contract is not his fault. However, his play, what he's done to make up for that is respectable for sure. He's played well. He's on pace for 30 points. He's still leading. I believe he's either first or second in the league in block shots. Might be second or third now that the bye week went by. But he's still playing his game. He's just producing more offensively, and I can absolutely respect that. Actually, before we move on to our forwards, Andre brought up a good point that we actually should discuss before moving on, is about the Paul Coffey hiring as player development. A consultant for player development, I believe is the official title.
I'm not against it. I mean, I'm glad that he's not in an official management or coach role. He's kind of like brought in as a contractor almost. But what that indicates to me is that the heat is really on the coaching staff now. Like, fix this or you're done. It demonstrates that Chiarelli doesn't have confidence in the coaching staff anymore, but he wants to try something minor before firing them. That's what that says to me. Coffey is a pretty aloof, easygoing guy, so I don't expect him to step on anyone's toes or crowd anyone's space or anything like that. As far as an old boys club hiring goes, I'm actually okay with this.
Yeah, when he first started in his coaching career, he was a consultant for the power play for the Phoenix Coyotes, and that was one of the better power plays that they've had. So I wouldn't, say a negative. That being said, his coaching career hasn't been the greatest. One of his biggest accomplishments being that he got. I think he was a 3-game ban in AAA, which was hilarious. That being said, I'm sort of wishy-washy, but I will reiterate the top comment in the subreddit thread on our Edmonton Oilers, Daryl Cates, this will make a fine addition to my collection.
Yeah, I mean it's OBC, and it's a little worrying that we're still seeing this come up where Keith Gretzky was hired and now Wayne was brought in. Wayne's a different story, but Paul's back. Craig is still there. Rob is, Kevin Lowe's still hanging around. Not really as much impact on the team, but it is a little disconcerting that we're still going down that OBC path. Mind you, as a skills development coach, there's not really many better defensemen you can have than Paul Coffey. Mm-hmm. So, I think he's going to, if like we mentioned earlier, our defensive producing points, our defensive production of points has been atrocious.
Yeah.
And if you think about anyone that could produce offensively to defenseman, Paul Coffey is a pretty good option. Not bad.
He's okay. He did score 48 goals one year.
So, he was okay. It's if you're gonna have somebody be a skills development coach, that's not a bad option.
That's where the issue comes into, is that with this organization, like, it's so hard to give the benefit of the doubt immediately on whether or not this is supposed to be like a good hiring because you're getting a good coach, or are we getting this guy because he had a history with this team during the best years that this team had? Because a lot of the hires have been towards the latter. Yes, he's a fantastic defenseman, but everyone's minds, the first thing that'll come to it is the latter, not the former.
Well, rightfully so.
Yeah, for good reason. Like, even the guys that have messed up past franchise, like the 10 years of darkness and whatnot, like, Lowe should be gone from this team completely, and yet he still holds a position that, which makes people, like, if you were within the organization, you'd go like, oh, he has no consequence to how the team is run in a hockey management kind of way. But everyone else will go, this means something. Because he wasn't gone completely, and he should have.
And on that aspect, when you bring up the fact that it's either they have no coaching experience or it's again, Coffey was hired because he was with the team. He has no coaching experience to speak of. But with that said, it's one of those things where he's a player who was on the Oilers, who's now on the Oilers again as a skills coach. Whether or not it works out well or not is to be determined, but it's another case of the Oilers hiring somebody who doesn't really have any experience.
And
which is concerning.
Great players don't automatically make great coaches.
We can look at the greatest one, for
Gretzky would beg to differ there, buddy. Oh, you should check that out, Ralsta. Like, hometown hockey would be pretty fun to check out. Go ahead.
Okay, so forwards, yeah.
All right, forwards.
We're gonna start with
poster child Ryan Strome.
We are gonna start with Drake Caggiula.
Oh, fucking Drake Caggiula. I gotta reorganize my points here. Adam, I'll let you start this one because I don't really have a score off.
Drake Caligula. Oh no. He's been an enigma to me this year. Yeah. To be honest, he's been really good or really bad, and there's been no in between. He's gone from playing with McDavid on the first line and on power play to sitting on the press box for 3 games because he couldn't figure out how to do anything. Even yesterday, he blew a couple of good chances for goals, but he's also being in those spots and getting those chances. So it's not like he's playing badly enough to not be there, but he's also not finishing. I want to say like a D plus because I don't really know where else to put him at this point. He's been bad, but not terrible, and okay, but not great.
No, I was gonna say about a C or a C minus. Whenever I watch the games, I don't know if I'm just not watching the same way or seeing something different, but whenever I watch him play, I usually actually like what I see, but the results just aren't really there. So
one thing that stands out to me from this season compared to last season is the fact that his Corsi relative and his advanced stats, for the lack of a better term, have been pretty poor this season. Last season he was hovering around a 0 to a plus, like between 0 and 1%. This season he's pretty strictly at a -4 on Corsi relative. And offensively, it's sort of showing too. That being said, I sort of agree with James. Whenever he does show, like, he shows up well, But simply put, like, you gotta put it in the back of the net. Even when you're like getting less chances than last season, if you don't have the efficiency to put it in the back of the net, then
Mm-hmm.
it's you don't deserve to be in a higher spot in the lineup, right? Um, and on that topic, then I'll give him a C for my grade.
Adam? Oh,
I
you
already
said
went.
you were first. All right.
Yeah.
Next up, then Mike Camilleri. He came over in a trade with LA Kings for
Yeah.
UC Jokinen. So he's first year with the club. He's got 8 points in 26 games, and he is 35, probably riding out the string of his NHL career.
Yeah, this is the end here.
I don't know. He might have a year, maybe 1 year after this one. I don't know. But what do you guys think?
Camilleri he's better than Jokinen. I'll give him credit for that. This is my quandary with Shirelli. He makes good trades for low impact players or for small trades, and then gets destroyed in the big ones. Mm-hmm. So the Maroon trade was obviously a good one. The Talbot trade was rather lucky based on Glenn Sathers giving us a gift. But with this one here, he did a good job of picking up another fourth liner that's been passable for us without being terrible like Jokinen was.
Yeah.
So for Camilleri, for what he's done, I can't say worse than a C. I can't say better than a C either. He's been a player.
Yeah. I think I'll reiterate that too. As a fourth liner, sometimes playing third line. 8 points in 26 games isn't monumental. Still produces offensively, I guess. The 2 goals there is the part that's sort of concerning, because it definitely shows that Camilleri has aged. This is a guy that scored 30 and 35 in past seasons, even with injuries. And Camilleri, I don't know. I'm gonna put that as a C minus, because that's a C minus, not because of he's playing bad, but because age has finally caught up with him.
Okay, I'll give him a C, bordering on a C plus. Historically, Camilleri has been actually one of my favorite players. So it kind of sucks to have seen him gone downhill quite a bit, but the offensive production isn't there like it used to. But I still see flashes of the pure skill that he has, and whether or not he scores or puts up offensive numbers, the other teams still respect what he can do, and they still give him space. I don't know if space is the right word, but he still is watched extremely closely because the extreme pure skill, the God-given skill, is still there. That being said, 8 points in 26 games is what it is. So I'll give him a C, but he is better than Jokinen. So, I mean,
The funny thing is,
said, an inconsequential trade was one.
Funny thing is, for the LA Kings, Jokinen has been better than Camilleri.
Wasn't Jokinen waived?
He was waived, but most Kings fans were going that he really should not have been waived, and he was claimed with good reason too by the Jackets, and the Jackets are happy with them so far.
When did they claim him?
Like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
Sweet, I'm up on the news there. Yeah.
So I really like Camilleri. I wish that we had him 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
When he was with Montreal, but
even then he would get injured all the time. So I don't even know.
Yeah, he's always had issues with health and injuries and whatnot. But man, he's a great player.
Speaking of injuries, I imagine our next player might be a little guy known as Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who, if you watch Achievement Hunter, Jeffrey Ramsey lovingly refers to him as Ryan Nugget-Hopkins. He is now out with a rib injury for 5 to 6 weeks. But before he was out, he was en route to a 28-goal season, assuming he had played every single game. In terms of general stats, he had 16 goals, 15 assists, 31 points in 46 games, which would have been fairly good for about 58 points and 28 goals if he had managed to play out the rest of the season. Arguably, he's been one of our better centers this season. I have to go over the defensive zone starts, but it's actually not heavily weighted. It's about the same as Chris Russell, yeah, he's shown up offensively. What are you guys' thoughts? I'll throw it to Adam. Oh no, James first because I started.
I'll give him a B plus, bordering on a.
A minus.
No, I'll give him a B plus. I mean, the offensive production is up. It's pretty much at the highest it's been since his rookie season. He's been coming off a couple of really unimpressive seasons, like, let's be honest. And bounce back season was good for him. I'll give him a B plus. The offensive production's great, and just the ability to throw him out in literally any of the 60 minutes of a hockey game, and you're like, okay, this guy's going to give you good play. And you can put him on the power play, PK, whatever. You know, he's great. I hope the Oilers don't trade him.
Traded.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nuge is almost like an A minus. He's a pretty damn good this season. At times when McDavid was struggling a little bit, Draisaitl wasn't playing particularly well. The team didn't look great. Nuge was there to kind of pick up the slack, and he played well in a lot of games early in the season, despite the fact that Oilers weren't. He's on pace for his best offensive season. He's been sound defensively. He's been overall, as a complete player, I'd say our best player on the ice. Most nights, or some nights. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say that when you have McDavid on the team. You can't really say someone's been the best player on the ice, and then you watch McDavid and he's just like a step above everyone else. So that's hard to say. Like, excluding McDavid, I think Nuge has been our best player this season, and it's hard to see that season again go the way of injuries with cracked ribs and a bruised sternum. I think that's unfortunate, but he's been good. I'm terrified that we're going to trade him this season just because we have to for cap reasons, and that we're going to lose a player that is coming into his own again, especially one that we're likely not going to get fair value for. But I could also look at it that if anything, the way he's played this season might be a good time to trade him because the stock's high. But I don't want to
can't trade him, man. Yeah, I can't trade him.
It's hard to justify trading what has essentially been your best player in terms of consistency this season outside of McDavid. Simply because McDavid has been, he is McDavid. That's another echelon there that you're looking at.
After this season, he's signed for 3 more seasons after this. Like, there's still good term left on his contract. And Nuge is the type of player, as soon as you trade him, you're looking to acquire a player like him. You trade Nugent-Hopkins, and okay, great, you have like a first-round pick and a promising prospect, but you also don't have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins anymore.
Shout out to Relsta and chat who cooked up ribs the day of the news to show solidarity for Nugent's ribs.
I like it.
That's indeed.
We should mention, by the way, this is by far the most comments we've ever had in a single chat.
Yeah,
so
this is really good chat. We interact with chat, so keep it up, guys.
I don't know what we did, but I'm liking it.
Yeah. Anyway, continuing on here, I give him an A minus simply because I think goal scoring is the biggest thing that any team needs. That's why I'm always hesitant when we trade away our Taylor Halls and Aberlays for less productive forwards or defensemen, because you're filling in the gap and you're getting more, say, defensively responsible players, but still you're losing a 28 goal scorer or a guy that puts up 60 points consistently in a season. So, or a guy that's en route to an 80 to a 90 point season. So
he plays on every unit right now.
Taylor Hall? Nuge. Yeah, Nuge. Nuge plays on
every single unit.
I'm sure you'd say that, Paul Party. Continue.
Onward and upwards.
And,
all right, who's next?
No, dude, your call.
Okay, I will go with...
Let's go to someone negative.
I'm going to go with someone negative. Great. I'll go with Cassian.
Oh, yeah, boy.
He's been better lately, but he was awful for the first like 30, 35 games.
Yeah.
He was brutal, like hard F for the first 30, 35 games.
He's looked better.
It's the same thing that we mentioned with Benning. It's not that everything is completely awful when we see him. It's just that there's nothing.
Yeah.
I don't even notice that he's dressed a lot of the time. He did have a pretty sweet Savardian spinorama in the game last night, actually.
Yeah, he threw really rough, whichever.
That was pretty sick. But overall, I give Cassian, 12 points in 47 games. That's a little bit below what I was hoping for, but not really incredibly so. I'll give him a C. I feel like it's a very generous C. I'll give him a
generous C.
Mm-hmm.
Adam?
0.25 points per game is that's all right for a third and fourth line player. But with Cassian, with the skills he has, the speed he has, and the tools he has in his toolbox, I think we should be expecting more. How much more is debatable, but he hasn't been good enough this season. I think he'd acknowledge that as well. And since around Christmas, he's improved a fair bit. But yeah, he was absolutely atrocious beforehand. Between him and Patrick Maroon, they were getting at least like one penalty every game, every 2 games. And when your penalty kill is as bad as ours is, that's something you can't do. You can't take dumb penalties, dumb slashing, dumb hooking penalties, stuff like that, arguing with the referees to really throw us down a hole like that. You can't do it. Lately, like as a Cassian has been better, but I would say C minus, D plus.
I'm going to just continue off on that, and I have to give a little bit more weight into the time that he was bad, because that was really, really bad. And it was pretty much inconsequential in most games, and when he was of consequence, it was in a negative light. What's Cassian's block shot numbers, buddy? Kalst is saying that Cassian's block shot numbers are high, I think. If anyone has that and can pull that up for us, please do. 4 block shots this season until bye week. Is that long?
4? That's it?
That's it?
4?
4 this season?
How do you not accidentally get away with that?
So that's
I think
an
I've
easy
blocked more
B
shots in a
plus,
beer league game by accident.
for Cassian. And that's mostly because, when he was not playing well, he was really not playing well. Next player.
Yeah, I'm changing mine from a C to a C minus. Yeah, he was not an NHL player for 35 games. So
so let's say Lex player is Patrick Maroon, another player that suffers from taking bad penalties.
Such a frustrating player, And when he does well, even I'm like, finally, you big buffoon. Like, I'm not even happy for him. God, we're the worst.
The thing is, he's entirely self-aware. Like he watches interviews and he's like, no, I'm not playing well. I finally did something right, and then you go and you're like, okay, Patrick, just do exactly what you said, and then does the exact fucking opposite. Takes it like the biggest. Like just enigma or not epitomization of Patrick Maroon's season so far is when he came back from suspension and then it took a penalty on his first shift back on the fucking ice. You're like, come on, man, like better than that. And then he played well the rest of the game, but like, why do you have to take that stupid penalty 2 minutes into the game when our penalty kill is the worst at home in history?
Yeah.
But it's like, Patrick, but you're not you're not the smartest player on the ice, but you're not that dumb.
But as Robert Paulson puts it in chat, he's low-key been our best left winger.
Yeah, he has.
That's a sad thing.
He's got 13
Not sad.
goals. He takes a lot of stupid penalties. If he didn't take as many penalties, I'd rate him higher. But I'll give him a. Oh, jeez. I'll give him a B minus.
Yeah, I'll give him a B. At the end of the day, 13 goals, 13 assists, and 26 points in 45 games is pretty good. I'll give him a B.
Yeah. If he was a bit smarter, I'd give him a higher grade, but he's so frustrating.
It's true.
He's averaging a penalty a game, or
Oh,
sorry, a penalty every 2
sweet,
games.
bro. That's efficiency,
Like
I'll tell you what. For
he's
those
a,
of you that
it's
missed
it's
it,
a,
by the way, Cassian 4 blocked shots in the entire season outside of last game, and he plays on the penalty kill. So, continuing on, what's your grade, Adam?
well, Patty's got an 11% shooting percentage right now as well. 11.71.
That's pretty high, but
pretty
not
average,
like astronomically so.
Yeah, it's not comically high, but he's got 55 penalty minutes in 45 games, and that should be a lot lower. And then the issue with his penalties for me isn't so much that he's taking them; it's the penalties he is taking. It's dumb slashes, it's arguing with the referee, it's late hits, stuff like that. With that said, hey, it's Connor. With that said, it's the kind of thing where Patty's also still producing. Like the chat mentioned, he's our best left winger this year. So I don't think you can go. I don't think you can go lower than like a B minus. He needs to improve his decision making significantly in terms of just not being a fucking idiot.
So another player that chat's talking about right now, I guess we can go on to him, Kyra.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. 15. Well, the offense is not great, but he's not meant to be that kind of player. So
well, he's showing up as that kind of player. That's the impressive
He is.
thing. 34 games played, 8 goals. It's pretty good.
He had a really good stretch there for 6 or 7 games, but he's been invisible for a lot of games too.
I'd 15 points in 34 games for 4. He's a fourth line, third line player. So 0.5 PPG roughly is impressive, I'd say, for him, especially because he's technically playing in he's rookie right now. He's playing in his season, the first season where he's playing significantly, and I think he's done a good job of surpassing expectations in terms of what, because we all looked down and went, okay, so we had Yakimov and Jujak Kyra, and I was like, okay, so those are the two big centermen that are coming in. Yakimov had a higher skill set. Kara looked at the kind of guy that could roll with our fourth line, and he's done that so far, but he's produced more than expected, especially as a rookie. For me at least.
No, continue.
For me at least, I got to give him at least a B, just because he's been more impressive than I expected, and I always want him to succeed. I always love seeing Indian players in the NHL, but he's been better than even I could have expected. And he should play better on average. Like James is right when he's been invisible a fair bit, but when he shows up big.
Kyra,
he does show up big. For me, Kara was it was almost like Brossois as well. Like he's 23. Okay, you're a forward. You tend to develop more quickly than defenseman or goalie. So like, time to show us what you can really do. Like, this is your make or break season, maybe. He's made it so far. He's definitely an NHL player. Been invisible for long stretches, though. The pure skill is great, higher than what I thought, and he seems to be making a case for a long-term NHL career here. I give him a very high B minus.
The one thing that's worth noting though is Kara's shooting percentage is currently 19%.
Yeah, so that's not gonna stay.
No,
that's comically high.
Taking that into consideration, I guess I'll give him a grading of B minus. Apologies, still with the flu. I think biggest thing for Kara is the fact that in the absence of Pitlick, we needed a new Pitlick, and we got a new Pitlick.
A bigger Pitlick, a more stronger Pitlick.
His offensive results are really showing up when he's playing on the fourth line. Like, most of his offensive results show up when he's playing with a Draisaitl or with a Nugent-Hopkins this season anyway. Which is also good because we need players that can meld and blend well with those players. But it'll be interesting to see how the mini version of Maroon, as Ralsta puts it in chat, can do into his future seasons with a season that matters. Unlike this one, because this season is over in terms of playoff contention.
The big thing,
and I give him a B minus.
The big thing that's going to need to adapt is going to be just consistency. for NHL players, you know, for young players coming out of NHL, you can have a good season to start, but it really is all about that consistency from game to game rather than a 4-point night and then going nothing for 6 games.
Exactly.
It's really about, you know, even if you're not producing points, you're playing your position while you're playing. And I think Kara, to his credit, has been good defensively.
Yeah. Okay, next player.
Speaking of establishing consistency, let's go with Jesse Puljujarvi. 14 points in 30 games. He had a 3-point night last year.
B+.
Yep.
Definitely for sure, Puljujarvi. It took a while to really get into his game, to really get into his groove. He started off with the season looking like he wouldn't stick on the roster, but now that he's back on and he has 9 goals in 30 games, he's definitely showing the fuck up. Still offensive results, 14 points in 30 games isn't, back-breaking spectacular. That's en route to essentially this season, I think, a 30-40 point season, 35 point season.
Or so. Yeah.
Pardon?
It extrapolated over an entire season. You're looking at about 40 points.
40 points, yeah. With the rest of the season, probably around 30 points. And then I'm just looking at his zone starts too. It's not that he's getting hugely positive zone starts. It's only 51.7% offensive zone starts for him, which is great because we have a defensively responsible forward, and he plays penalty kill. Although penalty kill hasn't been great, so I don't even know if that's a positive. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in the lineup. And one thing's for sure is that he was never gifted a spot on this lineup. He had to work for this lineup 100%. He went into it in a language and a culture that he's completely not accustomed to. You have to recognize that. And he managed to fit into this lineup in some kind of capacity. And now, especially after last game, with his pairing with Draisaitl, we might have a really good pairing for future seasons there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give him, his pizza per 60 is highest on the team. Yes.
With the offensive production in mind, and like you said, forcing himself onto the roster, consistency is still an issue. He's got a great shot, good skating. You don't see it super often, but man, he's got fucking hands. He can really dangle when he wants to. I'll give him a B-. There's still a lot of things to be worked on, but you can see that the potential is really there. And I think, if things continue the way they are, the Oilers have really got themselves a top 6 wing.
I'm going to change my scoring to a B. Adam?
I think Jesse's hilarious because aside from being a big, goofy, lovable guy, when I watch him on the ice, he still looks like he's trying to figure out just how goddamn big he is.
Yeah.
It seems like his stick is about half his size, and he seems like he's always making really slick moves that it doesn't look like his frame should be able to make. Yeah. I think in the next year or two, when he's finally stopped growing and he's more comfortable with his size, he's going to be really, really, really good. But the thing I like now is that he's gone from not really. He's been deferring a lot. He was deferring a lot of passes initially, or a lot of shots. He was just giving back to McDavid. He's now gone to the point where he's just putting everything on net, and he's throwing more hits, and he's starting to play more of his game that he played in the Finnish Elite League here, and that's what we want. We absolutely want more of that. It's worth noting his shooting percentage is very reasonable, about 11%. It's a little high, but that's normal for people who shoot a lot. This is very likely the Puljujarvi we're going to see for hopefully the next few years, if not a better version coming. I'd probably give him a B+. When he's dominant, he's really dominant.
Yeah.
But he's obviously can still work on a lot of things. But I like where he's done this year. I'll B+ for him for sure.
Okay. Let's just finish off our set of forwards. Oh, James is dead. James is back. Let's finish off our set of forwards here. What's next? Oh, we missed a V2. Do we want to talk about a V2?
He's not with the team. I don't think he'll be back. We can honestly leave him.
Okay.
I skipped over him on purpose.
Oh, Strome.
This is not his fault. Strome is what he is. You know, he's like a 30, 35 point guy. Like that's what he is.
Mm-hmm.
So have that information in a vacuum. You know, he's been invisible a lot of nights too. God, just what was expected of him? I don't even know.
To be Eberle light,
a low end Eberle.
You know, I'll give him a C. I think he's actually isn't he like pretty good on faceoffs?
I'll check it.
I believe so. 1 second here.
I don't know. I'll give him a C.
No,
but
he's been
44.9%.
He's one of our worst centers outside of McDavid.
Okay.
C plus. C plus. He has been exactly what we expected, or exactly what he's played in the past. We just expected more because of who he was traded for, which isn't fair at all. If we're gonna get terrible deals, then we have to understand that we can't expect these players to play up to the level of their predecessors.
Yeah.
That's just a reality of the Chiarelli era, unfortunately. And what it's come down to is Ryan Strome is playing the way he normally does. Oilers fans aren't happy with it because we didn't watch Strome the last few years, and we gave up a player who's now producing at a fucking ridiculous rate on the most potent offense in the NHL right now.
And
Eberle's having a great year.
And to add to that, he's on a line with the two players that we traded away. Two picks we traded away that we got Reinhardt for.
I know.
Beauvillier and Barzal. And Barzal's en route to win the Calder.
Before he crucified for the most potent offense thing, Tampa is, yes, the most potent offense. However, New York has the most goals for right now. That's where I'm getting that from.
Okay.
You know what, man? Like, fuck it. Good for Eberle, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it's good for Eberle. Yeah. I will 100% say, like, I'm really happy for Eberle. And honestly, I think, my bigger problem than the fact that Eberle and the Hall were gone for low values is the fact that, you know, we gave away our bottom 6 players that were working well with the team for essentially nothing. I look at Pitlick, who he essentially gave away, and now he's flourishing on the third line in Dallas. And
Pitlick couldn't stay healthy though. Like
you could say that he didn't stay healthy, but Clefbaum before last season could never stay healthy.
Yeah, but the idea was Clefbaum would be your number one, and Pitlick was never going to be your number one right wing or left wing wherever he's playing. Like Pitlick was bottom 6. That's what the expectations were.
Extremely talented bottom 6, but still bottom 6. He was never above that.
Yeah, but...
And with Clefbaum, I feel like people are more willing to be patient because of what he should be or what he could be.
What he's shown, really.
Yeah, exactly. Well, especially after last season.
Longer stretches of consistent play. Pitlick was always a very high-end, high-talent player, but he couldn't stay healthy more than 20 games at a time. Yeah. And then he finally did and blew his ACL.
I mean, I agree with you guys here, but still, that was still an asset that you have there as an RFA that you could have signed to a low contract.
You know, you could say that, but he's also...
And the same goes with Osterley,
because Dallas signed into a 3-year deal.
You're missing Sekera and so on. Anyway,
Dallas signed into a 3-year deal.
Coming back to it here, before I get crucified, who we're talking about, Strome. You know, it's what you're gonna get. He's essentially playing a third line center role. He was tried on the second line for a good portion of the season, didn't work. And now is essentially playing the minutes of a third line to fourth line center. At the end of the day, 17 points in 47 games isn't bad. It's good for a third line center. So I'll give him the same score I would give a third line center in a C or C plus. Adam.
I think I already said. I said C plus.
Okay, I was the last one. All right, next question.
Yeah, I give him a C. All right, next up, Mark Letestu. The offense is like pretty much around where it was last year. He's still the fourth line center. I don't know for how much longer though.
Yeah, he's been chicken and dragging the power play as much as he can, but it does not want to go willingly, that's for sure.
This
Or
is his
he was
last.
until he's pulled
This
off
is
of
his
it.
last season, so
Yeah.
he is what he is. I'll give him a. He's minus 15. I mean,
Oh,
that's the worst on the team. I know
I
that's
don't
not a
think it
great
matters.
stat to use, but I mean,
when you're
You're a
minus
bad
15 is
team.
pretty
It's not a
bad.
good stat to use.
Oh,
That's the way I see it anyway. Sector is a -9 with 12 games played, so
that's wow. Yeah.
not great. I mean,
What can
look,
you-
we hate plus minus as much as everyone else, but with massive outliers comes a lot of qualifications to that outlying.
Yeah.
I have a very similar score. I'm just gonna give him a C. His offensive production, honestly, I think is a little bit down from last season. Hey, we're up to a worse point total than he's had in seasons past. Power play wise, he's like less. I don't know how to put it exactly, but he's melding less well with the power play, and that's sort of like suffering with how the power play can use a front man, because that's essentially his role. He's there to pick up garbage rebounds, and
He was like a secret weapon on the power play last
he
year.
was, yeah.
Now fourth line center at even strength, and then you throw him on a power play, and it's like
you can still win the face
guy is
off
great. What's
52% of the
going
time.
Doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
It was great, yeah. Because like usually in past seasons we would have our best face-off man come in, win the face-off, and then run off so we can get a good offensive forward in. But
I could see
was a
Letestu
secret-
getting traded at the deadline, and then Kara taking over his role.
I give Letestu a C minus. I think there's more in him to give, but perhaps age is of 32 is now catching up to him. It seems likely that with expiring contracts and UFA status, and with us not making the playoffs likely, what's his name? Maroon and Letestu will likely be traded at the trade deadline. But that topic we can leave for a future podcast. Adam?
Yeah, because I imagine, to be honest, that we're gonna have some extra points about that when trade deadline comes around. But I'm gonna say solid C for Letestu. I don't have anything else to add. It's pretty much been what you guys said.
C for me as well. Okay, next up, let's go with Leon Draisaitl.
Oh God, I want to say a B. Well, he's on pace for around the same amount of points he had last year, isn't he?
Yeah,
About.
I
the
want to say
pressure's on because of his contract.
I want to say he's less impactful. Yeah, the contract is going to unfortunately weigh heavily over our perceptions of him. And he's gotten 38 points in 43 games, so it's not like he's pretty much at 0.9 points per game, which is top 6 quality for sure. That contract is basically going to determine what everyone thinks, which is unfortunate because he's played passably well, but not well enough. Like he has more to give, but he hasn't been bad.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would say B. I think separating him and McDavid was essential, especially if you're going to pay him $8.5 million a year. He has to center his own line, but he could drive that line a bit more.
Yeah, relative to his contract and expectations and everything, I'll give him a B plus. I think that I'm really trying to not take the contract into consideration and just really look at his play, and he's got more to give in terms of driving his own line, but he's a beast when he's on. He is way better than he does what Lucic was brought in to do. And Lucic still shows flashes of old Lucic, but I almost feel like Draisaitl is that guy now.
Yep.
Yeah, Draisaitl. I have same sort of situation with him. For sure, the big thing that plays into how we look at Draisaitl is going to be how well can he play without McDavid, and the answer this season has been and because of that, I'm guessing we're starting to see Draisaitl for the player that he actually is. As opposed to the player that he could be. That being said, he's only 22. There's still time. But at the end of the day, I would give him a B plus to an A minus. Still good offensive contribution. However, when you're getting a similar offensive contribution while being paid to give a very high offensive contribution, and the rest of the league scoring has gone up, it's a big question mark. Adam, are you done, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
So
next
at least
up-
Lucic and McDavid, right?
Let's go with Lucic first.
And Slapashev too. We could skip over Slapashev.
I feel like we can skip Slepyshev, honestly. I don't think
Yeah.
he's got a
It's a
future with
fairly
the team.
inconsequential one. He looked good last game, but or Pakarinen too. He looked good last game, but they're not putting the puck in the back of the net, and that's the big backbreaker at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucic, the offensive production is pretty much, right around where it was last year. He should finish around 50 points, which
Well,
is kind of what he is now. I don't know. He's still got some dangles in him. He's still got some hits and some dirty play and all that stuff. So I'll give him a B. Honestly, like he gets a lot of guff for his contract, and I still think the last few years of that contract are really gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, he's still like a passable, second line winger. So I'll give him a B.
I'll go next here. One of my bigger issues with Lucic is the fact that his goal total is coming out to be likely the worst in his NHL career outside of seasons that were lockout shortened. And that's where I have the big issue is that it's one of his worst goal producing seasons ever. Assuming things go exactly the same way that it is. I still have to look at his primary assists, but if Lucic gets a pass this season while Eberle last season doesn't get a pass for the season that he had, I'm really questioning the way that fans look at their players. And anyway, I would give him a B to a B minus here. I think there's more in him to give, but perhaps the age of 29 is catching up to him, and the rest of that contract is not going to look good.
Milan Lucic to me is one of those players that when he's on is an impact player every single time he's on the ice. We look at it last year where we played against the Ducks, I think it was, when we were down. Lucic scored a hattie to win the game and scored 2 goals in 2 shifts, threw a couple big hits. We took a couple penalties in the fight, and it's just like he took over that game. Yeah, he went out and said, "You know what? Screw you guys. This is my game. I'm going to dominate." And then the problem is you can't physically do that every night unless you're Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Steven Stamkos. Like the elites of the elite. But we don't see it often enough, and that might be due to age. It might be due to the way he's been playing. There's a lot of things, but 30 points in 47 games is passable, but not good enough. Primarily on the goal front, like Arun was mentioning, 9 goals in 47 games is not good enough for someone's making $6 million a year for 7 years. It's not good enough. 21 assists is great. The fact that he's producing that many assists.
I have to see how many of those is primary assists.
Primary, yeah. But he's shooting at 9%, 9.89, so pretty much 10%. So he's right around his average shooting percentage, which is a little concerning if he's got 9 goals and his shooting percentage is 9.89. I don't know. I want to say a C plus because he's been passable, but I want to say worse because he should be better. But again, that's kind of the issue where we can't, in the Shirley era, we cannot judge players based on contracts because we're overpaying everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm stuck at a C plus.
C plus, yeah. I think you're being really harsh with that assessment, but I understand it.
Probably, but
last player,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Connor McDavid.
Our fearless leader.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
If he doesn't score or get points, he is dancing around the opposition the entire night, creating chances, drives his line. The ice is tilted in our favor pretty much every time he's on the ice. The point totals are actually a little lower than what I expected this year. But
it's just ridiculous if you think about it.
Yeah. But still, pretty easily an A+. He was pretty quiet for about 4 or 5 games, but That's going to happen. It's unavoidable. So I give him an A+ pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give him an A+ too. Obviously, point totals. It'd be nice to see more offensive production from him. He's headed to a lower goal total and a lower assist total than he had last year. And 92 points versus 100 points is 8 points less, but that still is 92 friggin' points in a season. I did fault Draisaitl a little bit for getting the same offensive production in a season where scoring is up. So I have to be fair here and fault McDavid a little. So I will give him an A+ instead of an A++.
Yeah,
you're such an asshole. You are way too hard on this guy.
God. What did he do to deserve you? My God.
My God, dude.
Yeah, I think Connor is Connor McDavid. He's the second best player on the planet, depending on who you talk to. First, otherwise, and he's been in the last month and a half. He's been back to being McDavid. He's just making defensemen look ridiculous. He's turning people inside out. Just little fakes. The nice little moves he does. Just the little things in his game are back. And I think to start the year, he didn't have those little things, and it was a lot of use my speed to rush through the center of the ice, and defensemen were just basically standing there and not moving. And if the refs weren't calling anything, he wasn't getting anything out of it.
Do you think he felt the pressure at the beginning of the year? Or?
I want to say the whole team did. And he wasn't getting a whole lot of help from his wingers. His wingers were definitely not producing points. But yeah. I think he hadn't adapted his game to this NHL yet. Basically what he came into is the NHL had gone, holy shit, we need to fix this now. Completely revamped their strategies and the end of playing of McDavid. And he hadn't adjusted to that yet. And then by Christmas, we saw him kind of figure out how to use his skill set and his speed again to an advantage, and he's now starting to pick up and dominate over defensemen again.
Yeah. Whenever you get to a phase with McDavid where you go, we figured him out, he'll just break out of it and then go on a freaking crazy point streak. It's the same as it's what makes him the generational player like Crosby.
I was gonna say I think it's the same kind of thing with Crosby where he'll drop off for 5 or 6 games at a time, maybe even 10 if he's having a bad season, where he has to figure out
and then 2
what
games
he's
he'll get
doing
7 points
relative to everyone else on the ice, and why isn't it working the way it was. And then when those kind of players sit down, they watch film, they work on skills, they talk to their coaches, they talk to their skills coaches, and they go from there. And I bet you McDavid over while he was in Cabo for bye week, I can almost guarantee he was watching film every day. He was probably talking to his coaches, seeing what he can do. Not a lot on the ice with the team, but it's Connor. Mm-hmm. So I bet you this last half of the season he goes on an absolute tear.
I hope so.
I guess that is similar to last season too, where most of his points came in the last few games, where he went on a 22 game point streak.
22 in 13 games.
Yeah, something like
absurd amount of. Well, I remember I was just looking at this this can't get much better. This is fucking absurd.
Yeah. I'm gonna quickly switch over to power play for the team. What are your guys' thoughts on the power play for the team? The average this season is 19.2 for teams. The Oilers sit at 29th in the league at 15.1%.
Yeah, it just seemed like
it's still a good percent.
Move the puck around a lot.
For this season, it's bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It just whenever I watch the power play, I don't feel like there's an impending goal. I feel like they really struggle to get the puck moving, to get set up. I don't know what it is, if it's the players or if it's the tactics or what, but relative to the rest of the league, 29th, it kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
The problem is you can look at the season and say, yeah, power play percentages are up this season, but realistically, if we're still 29th in the league, we're doing something wrong that no one else is.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in a season where they've increased the number of penalties that are being taken, I think we're getting less opportunities on the power play. To be fair, like when we're not drawing as
Oilers
many
as a
penalties.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, as a team, but our power play is 29th. And you can say, oh yeah, well it's not as bad as our penalty kill, but it's still pretty friggin' bad. It's not like we're not historically terrific, but like it's not good. It's not good.
Got it, boss.
And if you want to switch over to the penalty kill, oh boy,
F for penalty kill.
fucking
Yeah, I'll
ass.
give an F for penalty kill, which is one of the worst penalty kills in hockey history.
I think it still is top like bottom 7 or bottom 10 at league worst time of all time.
New York Islanders is actually close to us. It's actually scary. They're at 73.5%. This is fucking hilarious.
Wow.
We are at 72.7%, which means about 30% of the time the team will score against us, which was as evidenced by last night's game. And I would give it an F for power play. I would give it a D plus. I think there's a few things that they do right, and perhaps we're catching them at a bad lull. But at the end of the day, they're not able to put it in the back of the net. Coaching, really quickly, finishing things off, I would give it a C minus. And GM, I would give definitely GM is biggest culprit for this season. I would give it a D minus. Adam, finish off your grades and coaching.
Oh god. Power play F, penalty kill F minus because good fucking god. Coaching staff, oh god, D minus at best. They've been our special teams have been shit. Yeah. McClellan has literally
5-on-5 has been good, but special teams, Jesus.
I don't have anything negative against McClellan, but the special teams, because he's already said that their unit and they refuse to leave individually. McClellan is now part of the problem, which is unfortunate because I like McClellan, but
I like McClellan too.
When we're losing games from special teams and you refuse to acknowledge that it's an issue but if you say I don't know how to fix the problem, not great.
James.
PKF. Power play, a very generous C minus. Coaching. God, it's the assistant coaches, and the special teams. The special teams, man, they're just it drives me crazy. I give him a D. I still believe in McClellan, but he does get outcoached more frequently than I'd like, and it's super obvious when he gets outcoached too. Yeah, I'll give the coaches a D.
GMs for both of you, and then we'll finish.
Jeez, what has he done since the season began? Camilleri trade.
Camilleri.
We got to include preseason here too.
Davidson was a pretty astute pickup. Nothing super consequential has happened, so I can't really knock him that hard. Davidson was decent. Camilleri trade was decent. I'll give him a B.
I was gonna say D plus.
I gave him
because he hasn't really. While he hasn't really done anything wrong, he's picked up a couple okay things. He hasn't really bothered addressing any issues that have been arising.
It's impossible to do that during mid-season, man.
No, I'm talking about off-season where there's obvious issues coming in, like you're missing.
Oh, we're talking off-season too.
As well, yeah, because that plays into how this season plays out.
I was saying from game 1 onwards. Okay, jeez.
I'm gonna include off-season, as soon as playoffs end, until now.
Yeah, I'll give him a D plus.
D plus.
Yeah.
As Robert Paulson put it, it's more what we lost rather than what he got us. Anyway, that's the end of our podcast here. It's been about an hour and 35 minutes from us. James has to head off here, so we'll quickly wrap things up, unless you guys got any questions, in which case we can quickly answer them. But this has been me, Arunatech5. We've done our quick mid-season review here, and we'll go back to our regular podcast schedule starting 2 weeks from now. And hopefully I won't have the flu anymore. This has been with me, Adam, otherwise known as Sweet44722 on Reddit, and James, otherwise known as Paul-McCartney- who looks like a wrestler apparently. I forgot the name. And anyway, thank you very much for joining us for this podcast here. And we'll see you next week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that nonsense. And usually we start around 11 or 12 2 weeks from now on Sunday. But we'll see
Thank
you
you
then.
for participating in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Thank you
Thank
for
you very
participating in
much.
the chat. Most
Really
active chat
appreciate it.
we've had in a while. Thanks, guys. See you.